The digital world is abuzz tonight. A Reddit post, shrouded in fear and mystery, has sent chills down the spines of millions. The author, a user known only as Witness, recounts a terrifying dream, a vision so vivid, so real, it has left them shaken to their core. The post, written with a raw, frantic energy, describes a nightmare of apocalyptic proportions. The end of the world, witnessed firsthand in a dreamscape so vivid, it blurs the line between fantasy and reality. The Redditor speaks of a world unraveling, of cosmic horrors beyond comprehension. Their words paint a picture of utter despair, of a universe collapsing in on itself, dragging all life down with it. Is it just a nightmare, a figment of an overactive imagination? Or is it something more, a premonition, a terrifying glimpse into a future on the brink of annihilation? The post begins simply enough. "I don't know what to do," it starts, the words practically leaping off the screen in their urgency. "I had this dream last night and I haven't been able to shake it." The Redditor goes on to describe their dream in horrifying detail. A world shrouded in darkness, the sky a canvas of blood red, torn apart by monstrous creatures beyond human comprehension. The language is raw, unfiltered, the words tumbling out in a torrent of fear and disbelief. It's as if the Redditor is trying to purge the images from their mind, to share the burden of their terrifying experience with anyone who will listen. The post has gone viral, shared millions of times in a matter of hours. People around the world are captivated, horrified, and desperate for answers. Is this just a story, a piece of online fiction designed to shock and disturb? Or is it a warning, a cry for help from someone who has seen the end? The Redditor, grappling with the remnants of the nightmare, describes a chilling sensation, a feeling of being watched, even as sleep's grip loosened. It was as if the abyss itself had stared back, leaving an indelible mark on their soul. The dream self, paralyzed by fear, could only watch as the world around them dissolved into chaos. The familiar constellations, once points of light and guidance, twisted and contorted, their celestial dance transformed into a grotesque parody. There was a presence, a consciousness within the unfolding chaos that amplified the horror tenfold. It was not merely the end of all things, but a deliberate dismantling, orchestrated by an unseen hand. And at the heart of this cosmic collapse, a figure began to emerge. Not a being of light, not a savior, but something ancient, something terrible. Its form, barely glimpsed through the disintegrating fabric of reality, was enough to send shivers down the spines of even the most hardened skeptics reading the post. The Redditor continues, their words growing more fragmented, mirroring the shattering reality of their dream. The universe, once perceived as eternal and unchanging, was now a tapestry fraying at the edges, its threads dissolving into nothingness. Planets, once solid and familiar, crumbled like dust. Stars, those distant suns, sputtered and died, their light extinguished in the encroaching darkness. The very laws of physics seemed to bend and break, as if reality itself were a set of rules easily discarded. And as the universe unraveled, so too did the Redditor's dream self. Their sense of identity, their memories, their very being, all began to fragment alongside the cosmos. It was a terrifying descent into oblivion, a slow unraveling of the soul. The comments on the Reddit post exploded, a digital cacophony of fear, disbelief, and morbid fascination. Some users dismissed it as an elaborate hoax, a creative writing exercise gone viral. Others, however, claimed to have experienced similar dreams, their words filled with an unsettling resonance. Time, that relentless current, lost all meaning within the nightmare. The Redditor described it as a broken clock, its hands spinning wildly, its gears grinding to a halt. The past, present, and future collapsed into a single, terrifying instant. The sensation of falling, of being pulled inexorably towards some unknown abyss, intensified. It was not a physical descent, but something far more profound, a collapse of the very framework of existence. There was a sense of inevitability, of a preordained conclusion, that permeated every aspect of the dream. Resistance was futile, struggle was meaningless. All that remained was to witness the final, terrifying act. The Redditor's words, stark and haunting, appeared on screens across the globe. News outlets picked up the story, social media platforms were flooded with reactions, and a sense of unease settled over the digital world. Was this the collective unconscious expressing itself, a shared premonition of doom? And then, silence. The Redditor described it as the most terrifying silence imaginable, a silence so profound it seemed to swallow all sound, all light, all existence. It was the silence of the void, the ultimate emptiness. The universe, in its final moments, seemed to exhale. It wasn't an explosion, not a bang, but a slow, deliberate release of energy, a cosmic sigh that extinguished all that was. And then, nothingness. The dream self, stripped of all that defined it, ceased to be. No thoughts, no feelings, no memories, only the infinite expanse of the void. The Reddit post ended abruptly. No final words, no explanations, no reassurances. Just a chilling silence that mirrored the terrifying void described in the dream. The digital world held its breath, waiting, watching, wondering. The Redditor's words, stark and haunting, hung in the digital ether. The silence after the dream, the silence of the void, seemed to seep into the real world, leaving millions feeling inexplicably vulnerable. The line between nightmare and reality blurred, the digital world holding its breath. Then slowly the comments began to reappear. Words of comfort, of disbelief, of shared anxiety. The digital world, shaken but not broken, sought solace in its interconnectedness. Yet, the Redditor's silence remained, a chilling echo of the abyss they had described. The Redditor's nightmare resonated with a primal fear, a fear buried deep within the human psyche, the fear of the unknown, of forces beyond our control, of the inevitable end that awaits us all. In a world increasingly defined by technology and instant gratification, the Redditor's dream served as a stark reminder of our own fragility, of the delicate balance that holds our reality together. The Redditor's dream self, ejected from the void, returned to a world on the precipice of annihilation. The sky, once a source of comfort and wonder, now bled a sickly red, as if infected by some cosmic disease. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, a palpable tension that set teeth on edge and sent shivers down spines. The familiar world, once a haven of predictability, now felt alien, threatening. And as the Redditor watched, the very fabric of reality seemed to distort, as if the universe itself were a canvas slowly being pulled apart. The horizon, once a solid line, rippled and wavered, revealing glimpses of something vast and terrible beyond. The Redditor's words, fueled by terror and adrenaline, tumbled onto the screen. It was like the world was being turned inside out, they wrote. Like everything we thought was real was just a thin layer of paint, and something monstrous was clawing its way through. The wind, once a gentle breeze, now howled like a banshee, carrying with it whispers of madness and despair. The Redditor strained to make sense of the sounds, their mind struggling to process the sensory overload. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into words, phrases, sentences. But the language was alien, ancient, filled with guttural sounds and chilling intonations that defied human comprehension. It was a language of chaos, of destruction, of something ancient and powerful awakening from its slumber. The Redditor, trapped within the nightmare, felt a primal fear grip their heart, a fear that resonated deep within their bones. The comments on the Reddit post reflected the growing sense of unease. "This is getting creepy," one user wrote. "It's like this dream is contagious." Another added, "I can almost hear the wind, even though I'm sitting in my apartment." And then through the swirling chaos of the blood-red sky, a shape began to emerge. A colossal shadow, impossibly large, blotting out the light of the dying sun. The Redditor, their breath catching in their throat, watched in horrified fascination. It was a creature of nightmare, its form shifting and contorting, defying easy categorization. Tentacles writhed, claws scraped against the sky, and a single baleful eye opened, casting its gaze upon the ravaged world. The Redditor, their fingers flying across the keyboard, struggled to find words to describe the sheer terror that gripped them. The creature was beyond comprehension, a manifestation of primal fear given form. The digital world, once a place of distraction and amusement, now felt like a lifeboat adrift on a sea of terror. The Redditor's words, a beacon of fear in the digital storm, had inadvertently connected millions to a nightmare they never could have imagined. The colossal creature, its form solidifying with each passing moment, let out a sound that was both a roar and a groan, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the world. The Redditor, their ears ringing, felt their dream self shrink back in terror. "The time has come," the creature boomed, its voice a guttural rasp that echoed across the ravaged landscape. "The old ones awaken. The end is nigh." The Redditor's words, barely coherent, appeared on the screen. "It's here," they typed, their fingers trembling. "It's real. God help us all." The digital world, once a place of escape, now felt like a prison. The Redditor's nightmare, a shared reality that transcended the boundaries of the physical world. The line between dream and reality had vanished, and millions found themselves staring into the abyss, their collective breath held hostage by a single, terrifying question. What happens next? The Redditor's words, stark and desperate, continued to flow onto the screen, painting a vivid picture of a world spiraling into chaos. The ground, it started shaking, they wrote, each keystroke heavy with terror, not just trembling, but like the whole world was about to crack open. The dream self, paralyzed by fear, could only watch as the once familiar landscape buckled and heaved. Trees swayed violently, their roots ripped from the earth. Buildings groaned, their facades crumbling like stale bread. Animals, their instincts screaming at them to flee, ran in panicked circles, their eyes wide with terror. The Redditor, their heart pounding in their chest, felt a surge of empathy for these creatures, caught in the same nightmare, facing the same unknowable threat. It was like something was trying to break free from below, the Redditor typed, their words tumbling over each other in their haste, like the earth itself couldn't contain the horror that was coming. The digital world watched, captivated and horrified, as the Redditor's nightmare unfolded in real time. Time, already fractured and distorted within the nightmare, began to play cruel tricks on the Redditor's dream self. Moments stretched into eons, seconds contracted into heartbeats. The familiar flow of time, once a comforting constant, became a weapon, disorienting and terrifying. The Redditor described a chilling sensation, as if they were caught in a broken projector, the film of their dream life skipping and repeating. Faces flickered in and out of existence, voices overlapped, creating a cacophony of sound that grated on the nerves. It was like time was being ripped apart, the Redditor wrote, their words barely keeping pace with the chaotic images flashing through their mind. One minute I was running, the next I was frozen in place, the world dissolving around me. The digital audience, glued to their screens, felt a collective sense of unease. The Redditor's words, imbued with the raw terror of the dream, were starting to bleed into the real world, blurring the lines between nightmare and waking life. Section 3. The Impossible Tornado. As if the crumbling earth and the distorted time weren't enough, a new horror emerged from the chaos. A tornado of impossible size and fury. The Redditor, their dream self cowering in fear, described a swirling vortex of darkness, its edges crackling with an unnatural energy. This wasn't a natural phenomenon, a product of weather patterns and atmospheric pressure. This was something else entirely, something malevolent, something alive. The tornado moved with a terrifying sentience, its path erratic, unpredictable. The Redditor, their heart pounding in their chest, watched as the tornado ripped through the landscape, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Buildings were reduced to rubble, trees uprooted and tossed aside like twigs. It was like something out of a nightmare, the Redditor wrote, their words barely able to capture the sheer terror of the experience. The wind, the noise, the darkness, it was like the world was being consumed by something evil. Section 4. The Void's Embrace. The sky, bleeding red, darkened as the tornado raged, threatening to swallow everything. The Redditor felt a coldness seep into their bones, unrelated to the temperature. It was the coldness of the void, the heart of the nightmare. A coldness that sucked warmth, light, and hope. The Redditor's fingers trembled on the keyboard. Like being swallowed by darkness, they wrote. All light, warmth, and life were being sucked out. The digital world held its breath, hanging on the Redditor's words. The nightmare transcended the screen, seeping into reality. Section 5. A Sky of Blood. The red light intensified, bathing the world in a bloody hue. It wasn't just the sky anymore, it was as if the air itself was bleeding, the very fabric of reality stained with a crimson horror. The Redditor, their dream self caught in the grip of terror, looked on in numb disbelief. The wind howled, a symphony of madness and despair, carrying with it whispers of ancient evils, of forgotten gods, of things that should have remained buried beneath the weight of eons. The Redditor, their senses overloaded, felt their mind teetering on the brink of collapse. The world, it felt like it was dying, the Redditor typed, their words appearing on the screen in a jumbled rush, like everything beautiful, everything good, was being consumed by something monstrous. The digital audience, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of their screens, felt a collective shiver run down their spines. The Redditor's nightmare, so vividly described, so terrifying in its detail, had become a shared experience, a window into a world on the brink of annihilation. And then, through the swirling chaos of the blood-red sky, a new shape began to emerge. Not another monstrous creature, not another terrifying manifestation of the nightmare, but something different. Something that made the Redditor's blood run cold. It was a single unblinking eye, impossibly large, staring down from the heavens. An eye that seemed to hold all the terror, all the madness, all the emptiness of the void within its depths. An eye that saw everything, knew everything, and promised only oblivion. "It's here," the Redditor typed, their fingers flying across the keyboard, their words imbued with a raw, primal fear. "The end. It's really here." The digital world held its breath, the Redditor's words echoing in the silence. The nightmare, once confined to a single dream, had spread, its tendrils reaching out to touch the waking world. And as the unblinking eye stared down from the heavens, a single, terrifying question hung in the air. Could anything stop what was coming? The Redditor's nightmare ended, but the terror lingered. Waking to the soft glow of dawn, they felt a surge of relief. The nightmare had receded, leaving behind a residue of fear. Sitting up, the Redditor reached for their phone. It was 6:32 a.m. A normal time, a mundane time. The world outside their window seemed oblivious to the horrors. The Redditor, still shaken, got out of bed and walked to the window. Cars hummed through the pre-dawn streets. A dog walker waved to a neighbor. It was a scene of everyday life, reassuring in its banality, but a deep unease lingered. The world outside their window seemed off. The colors were too bright, the sounds too sharp. It was as if reality itself were holding its breath. The Redditor moved through their morning routine with a sense of detachment. They made coffee, ate breakfast, checked their emails, feeling like an actor in a play. The clock on the microwave ticked with unnatural precision, each tick a hammer blow against their fragile sense of security. It wasn't just the clock, it was everything. The rhythmic whir of the refrigerator, the steady drip of the faucet, the distant rumble of traffic, all seemed amplified, distorted, imbued with a sinister undertone. The Redditor tried to shake off the feeling, telling themselves it was just anxiety, the lingering effects of a bad dream. They turned on the TV, hoping to distract themselves with the mindless chatter of morning news, but even the cheerful banter of the anchors couldn't penetrate the wall of unease that had built up around them. The Redditor, their mind racing, couldn't escape the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The world outside their window, once a source of comfort and familiarity, now felt like a stage set, a flimsy facade hiding a terrifying truth. As the morning wore on, the Redditor's sense of unease intensified. The sky, once a clear blue, began to darken, clouds gathering with unnatural speed. The wind picked up, howling through the streets like a wounded beast. The sudden shift in weather was unsettling, sending chills down the Redditor's spine. It wasn't the natural roar of a storm, but a high-pitched whine vibrating deep within their bones. It was the sound of something ancient and malevolent stirring from its slumber. The Redditor watched as the wind whipped through the trees, leaves swirling like confetti. The world outside their window was transforming into something alien and threatening. A bolt of lightning split the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. The Redditor jumped back from the window, their pulse quickening. The storm had arrived with a vengeance, and it was no ordinary act of nature. The Redditor, their mind racing, struggled to make sense of the sudden, violent storm that had descended upon the city. It wasn't just the wind and the rain, it was the feeling that permeated everything, a palpable sense of dread, of something ancient and evil awakening. And then, carried on the wind, the Redditor thought they heard something else. Whispers, faint at first, then growing louder, more insistent. They strained to make sense of the sounds, their heart pounding in their chest, their breath catching in their throat. The whispers were not in any language the Redditor recognized. They were guttural sounds filled with a chilling cadence, a rhythm that seemed to resonate deep within their bones. It was the sound of madness, of chaos, of something ancient and powerful beyond human comprehension. The Redditor, their mind teetering on the brink of panic, stumbled back from the window, their gaze darting around the room as if searching for an escape, a way to shut out the terrifying sounds that seemed to be seeping into their very being. The wind howled louder, its keening whine becoming a deafening roar, as if the sky itself were being torn apart. The Redditor, their eyes wide with terror, watched as the clouds swirled faster, their movements becoming increasingly erratic, defying the natural laws of meteorology. The light outside, already dimmed by the storm clouds, began to fade, the world plunging into an unnatural twilight. It wasn't the gradual descent of dusk, but a sudden, terrifying eclipse, as if something massive were blocking out the sun. The Redditor, their breath catching in their throat, watched in horrified fascination as the sky itself seemed to buckle and warp. The once familiar blue canvas now a terrifying abyss of swirling darkness. The wind screamed, the whispers intensified, and a primal fear, ancient and instinctive, gripped the Redditor's heart. The world outside the window was no longer recognizable. It was as if reality itself were unraveling, the very fabric of existence strained to its breaking point. And in that moment, the Redditor knew, with a certainty that chilled them to their core, that the nightmare hadn't ended. It had only just begun. The Redditor's words hung in the digital void, a chilling testament to fear. Millions of eyes stared at those final words. It had only just begun. A collective shiver ran down spines across the globe, and then, silence. The Redditor went offline, their digital presence vanishing. The silence was deafening, amplifying the fear. The digital world found itself waiting, but the Redditor remained silent. The world outside continued its relentless march, but for those who had read the Redditor's words, something had changed. The world no longer seemed quite as solid, quite as safe. Days turned into weeks, the silence from the Redditor stretching on, unbroken. The initial terror, the raw panic that had gripped the digital world, began to subside, replaced by a dull ache of anxiety, a nagging sense of unease. Some dismissed the Redditor's post as an elaborate hoax, a piece of viral marketing designed to exploit our deepest fears. Others, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that the Redditor had stumbled upon something real, something terrifying. The world outside, for the most part, remained unchanged. The sun continued its daily journey across the sky. The seasons changed in their predictable dance. Life went on. But there were whispers, rumors, stories shared in hushed tones. People claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky, heard unsettling sounds on the wind. Coincidences perhaps, but the doubt lingered. The Redditor's silence, however, remained the most unsettling aspect of the entire ordeal. Had they been right? Had their nightmare been a premonition, a glimpse into a future on the brink of annihilation, or had they simply vanished, swallowed whole by the digital abyss they had described? The digital world, once a place of constant noise and distraction, found a strange new equilibrium. The Redditor's nightmare, while still a topic of discussion, no longer dominated the headlines. Life, as it always does, went on. But beneath the surface, a current of unease remained. The Redditor's words had left an indelible mark, a seed of doubt that refused to be silenced. The world, once perceived as solid and unchanging, now seemed fragile, vulnerable. The digital world, for all its flaws, had become a mirror to the human psyche, reflecting our hopes, our fears, our deepest anxieties. The Redditor's nightmare, whether real or imagined, had exposed a raw nerve, a collective fear of the unknown that resonated long after the screen went dark. And so, the world held its breath, caught between the comfort of normalcy and the lingering dread of what might be lurking just beyond the horizon. The Redditor's silence was a deafening echo, a constant reminder that sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones left untold. Months later, a new post appeared on Reddit. It was a simple text post, no images, no links, just a few words typed in a familiar font. The username, long dormant, sent a shiver down the spines of those who remembered Witness. The post was short, cryptic, but for those who had followed the Redditor's story, it was chillingly familiar. It wasn't a dream, it read. It was a warning, and it's happening. The post, like a ghost story whispered around a campfire, spread like wildfire. The digital world, once lulled into a false sense of security, exploded with renewed terror. Was this it? Had the Redditor's nightmare finally come to pass? The world outside for now remained unchanged. But the fear, the doubt, the unsettling feeling that something was terribly wrong, it lingered in the air, a silent echo of a nightmare shared by millions. The Redditor's warning, whether real or imagined, had planted a seed, and in the fertile ground of the digital age, fear, like a virus, was spreading.